All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining on tonight, today, this morning, this afternoon, wherever you may be. Welcome to another OUTTEACH discussion. My name is, hold on one second. All right, there was some background noise. So, again, welcome. So, this discussion tonight is very relaxed. Think of it as parents having some tea, coffee, and just having a roundtable discussion, very comfortable about the safety of our children. Now, as I present this tonight, I'm not coming from a place of just being a member and moderating this. I also come wearing the hat of a parent myself, as well as for my profession, I am a governance risk and compliance auditor. Specifically, I audit IT and cloud security processes and procedures. Now, in addition to that, there is an element of privacy that I focus on, whereby I have to track all of the developments of privacy laws around the country. And so I have to read about them, I have to know them, and I also have to present them to my vice president of corporate security. So I come wearing these multiple hats, having these real life uh, experiences, right? So this information I'm sharing tonight is just know that, it is necessary for every caregiver, every parent, even the children to really, really understand the importance of online privacy. So for this agenda, we're going to talk about OUTTEACH. I don't think we really got into the nuts and bolts of what OUTTEACH is. So we're going to go over that. I'm going to unbox COPA. So you will learn what that actually means. It's an acronym. I'll provide you some sources for parents, caregivers who want to do further investigation and also assess their children's websites to make sure that those service providers are following this federal law. And of course, if there's a Q&A, you're welcome to do that in the chat, and I can answer those questions now or later. When you close off of this live or out of this Zoom room, there are going to be three learning objectives that you can comfortably walk away with. You're going to know more about COPA. You're going to understand how to check COPA compliant websites, and you'll be able to apply tips for your children to be safer online. So a little bit about OUTTEACH. OUTTEACH for us falls under our Ada University. It is a free program where we focus on training and education for the general public. Now, as an organization, we do really focus on education and training for our members, as we are an education and training first business. We also see the need to focus on the general public, our followers, our friends, our family. Why is it that we can learn practical skills and we can't share that with you all, right? So tonight, this is one of our opportunities to provide some free education and training specifically about our subject tonight, which is child online privacy. Some of the key features that you'll come to know about OUTTEACH is that we really focus on the accessibility piece. One of the core principles is really making education accessible. So I kind of talked about that just a few minutes ago. We also provide a comprehensive curriculum wherein we focus on career development, communication skills, implementing some financial tips and literacy, talking about some of those soft skills that are transferable, like time management and personal growth. Our learning can be interactive. For example, online modules, workshops, and interactive sessions. Flexibility. Now, really, that kind of falls under the education style of learning, which would again be the online modules, the workshops, the interactive sessions, because some of that information is self-paced and self-study. Lastly, recognition and certification. So again, if you do decide to participate in one of our online modules, workshops, or interactive sessions, we do provide you a recognized certificate where you can celebrate that on your resume and also add it to your personal portfolio. Now we're going to get into COPA and we're going to unbox this together. COPA stands for the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. Now, this is a federal law that was implemented in 1998, and it focuses on children under the age of 13. Some may argue that that is a great comprehensive federal law. Coming from a privacy security background, I don't necessarily agree. I think children above the age of 13 should fall underneath the scope of this Privacy Act. But we're not there yet. Now, under COPA, websites, online services directed towards children, or those who act with actual knowledge that they are collecting personal information, they have to disclose that they're collecting that information. This law also requires that these entities provide explicit privacy notices and take steps to ensure the security of the collected information. Now, I want to pause here for a moment because I want to just make sure we're all on the same page. So when we talk about these privacy notices, they also can include a EULA. So, excuse me, it's an electronic agreement. So sometimes think about it when you download a mobile app, right? Before you can access that app, you'll see all of this fine print and you got to scroll, scroll, scroll. And then at the end, it says, I agree. Some of us read it, some of us doesn't. No judgment, right? But that is what that is, these privacy notices. Now, a parent, caregiver, cannot go into court and argue that a child who has now access to an explicit website or mobile application, somehow bypass that electronic agreement and that case would stand. That would be actually the responsibility of the parent, not the child. So that case wouldn't necessarily stand unless there are other nuances that would circumvent that particular rule. And so case in point, right? Parental control. So this act really gives the parent control to make sure that they're not accessing unauthorized sites that are collecting information illegally, right? And using this personal information. The enforcement of this act is really overseen in its totality by the Federal Trade Commission, FTC, here in the United States. Now, some of you may be asking, okay, I'm listening to this, right? And you're talking about my child accessing these websites and they're collecting information. What type of information are we speaking of? And that's a very great question. So things like your first and last name of your child, a home or other physical addresses, including the street name or the city or town, online contact information, a screen or username that functions as an online contact information, a phone number, a social security number, a persistent identifier that can be used to recognize a user over time and across different websites or online services. And sometimes, believe it or not, a persistent identifier can simply be an email address. I've actually done research myself wherein I will go to Google and I will search an email address, and everywhere that email address is posted will come up in that listing on someone. Okay. A photograph, video footage, right? Media, audio file, things that even capture their voice. And I know that in the news as of late, there has been these cases that are going to court where parents have found these Elmos and other toys that are actually recording their voices. One case in particular, the voice of the toy actually spoke back and was attempting to engage in conversation with the child. So we really have to be careful when we're getting into, as we're turning into the age of AI, right? We got to be real careful because technology is becoming very, very sophisticated. Last but not least, geolocation information that's really sufficient enough to identify street name of a city or town. And some of that looks like maps, right? So if you are someone or your child is using GPS, and with Google specifically, that geolocation data can actually leave what is called metadata or internet crumbs of that child, whereby the right person that's sophisticated in their hacking and really understanding and intending to do harm can track that and track back to identify that child. So we're going to watch a quick video on internet safety tips for kids.
The best place for creators to make money in the creator economy is Kajabi.
You don't need a huge following to. Have you ever used a computer to look up information or watch a video or play a game? Then you've probably used the internet. The internet is a system that connects millions of computers around the world. Sometimes we use that system to watch or read things. Maybe a scientist in Australia takes a picture of a kangaroo and puts it on the internet. We can use our phones, tablets, or computers to connect to that picture and see it. Sometimes we use the internet to communicate or talk to people. Your teacher might email your parents, and then they can see his or her message on their computer. You might play games on the internet where you can message your friends. But just like there are strangers in real life, there are also strangers on the internet. If you get a message from someone you don't know, tell a grown-up right away. Sometimes it's hard to tell who strangers are on the internet. In person, you know who your parents and family and friends are because you recognize them. On the internet, it's a lot easier for a stranger to pretend to be someone you know. If you get a message asking you to share personal information, even if it looks like it's from someone you know, tell a grown-up right away. What's personal information? Things like your name, your school, your address, or even pictures of yourself. That information is private and shouldn't be shared online without an adult's permission. Don't be embarrassed to ask a grown-up if a message is okay. They can help you block a stranger so they don't contact you again. Most importantly, don't keep secrets from grown-ups about the internet. If you get a message from anyone that tells you to keep the message a secret, get help from an adult you trust right away. What about websites? There are plenty of websites that are safe for kids, but sometimes you might accidentally click on a picture or a video that isn't meant for kids. Tell a grown-up right away so they can help you. The internet is a great tool for learning, but it's important to use it safely. Be careful of strangers, keep your personal information private, and tell a grown-up right away if something you see makes you uncomfortable. Happy learning!
So online danger continued. So we're talking about, watch the video, paying attention to things that make you uncomfortable, right? Well, let's continue that. So what we haven't spoke about is social media. Now, social media sites are seen to be very cool. We know that, right? Can we talk about TikTok, for example? But sometimes parents, caregivers are not allowing their children to access these types of sites yet. where going to school, the classmates, kids in the neighborhood, oh, they've been, they have a profile for like over a year. Though these sites don't present a threat directly, doesn't mean threats don't exist. And so we have to be very self-aware, right? And teach our children to be very self-aware about the information that they see and what they share. So some of those risks look like cyberbullying, bullying using digital technology. And so often we hear very sad stories of children committing suicide because they're being bullied through a website, through an intranet site, which is an internal site specifically for a specific network, such as the school network, and only accessible if you are on school grounds, right? So sometimes those forums and they have chat spaces, and children have been bullied through those mediums and unfortunately have taken their own lives. Invasion of privacy, right? Going back to the disclosure of your address, disclosure of the child's picture and other identifying items. Identity theft. Now, I that's kind of tricky because I don't really know an example of a child's identity theft story other than a parent, unfortunately, utilizing a child's social security number to open bogus accounts fraudulently, right? That's an example, but I don't know it to be where really in any other form. Your child seeing offensive images and messages. That's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, right? Is when your children are accessing these websites and these mobile applications, you really can't control. Now, parental control can simply be how they access or for how long they access, right? But once they're in, there really is no measure to how the information they see or receive is policed. And then lastly, we don't know who's on the internet. We don't know if these folks are predators. They appear to be nice. They ask the right questions. They say the right things. But some children don't have the wherewithal to discern the difference. And oftentimes they're groomed. So let's watch a quick video about online predators.
Do you have friends you've met online? Maybe you met them while playing a video game, or perhaps they're a friend of a friend. But were you absolutely sure they were who they said they were? Sometimes tricky people create fake profiles to convince kids to become friends. You might think this is silly and that you would never fall for it, but it's actually super easy to make a fake account. How easy? We'll show you. First, an adult signs up for a new account with a different email address. Then they need to make a believable profile pic of a young person. They can do this with filters and Photoshop in just a few minutes. Or they can also Google image search 13-year-old and thousands of results will pop up. Some real, some fake. Then they add a bio similar to ones kids use, putting in a high school, class year, emojis, that sort of thing. And that's it. It's that simple. They can now pretend to be a kid and try to strike up friendships with children like you, usually with bad intentions. So, wondering how you can recognize dangerous people like this when you're online? We've got 4 things to look out for. First, pay attention to how a stranger talks online. A dead giveaway someone is an adult is if they just sound like a grown-up. Think more serious and really formal, like, how are you doing today? Instead of, sup. As you probably know, real kids use emojis, abbreviations, and memes. They don't message each other like they're writing an English paper. Second, watch out for signs they're trying to control you. This could mean them setting rules for when you have to respond, what you should call them, or how you should talk to them. Third, be on the lookout for people who start getting very serious after chatting for just a few minutes, asking about things like your age, family, and likes and dislikes. Also, they may compliment you a lot and make you feel special. Finally, a major red flag is anytime a stranger asks you to send photos in your underwear or naked. Always tell an adult you trust immediately if this happens, even if the stranger threatens you. The people around you will be able to protect you. Your parents won't be mad, and nothing you've done is your fault. We know this stuff can be scary, but it's important to know that there are some people on the internet who try to hurt kids. It happens every single day, and it can happen even to smart kids like you. To help you stay away from people like this, remember these 3 things. Number 1, never give out personal info online. This means your address, phone number, and even where you go to school. Number 2, if a situation starts to feel weird, it probably is weird. Talk to your family if anyone ever makes you feel uncomfortable online. Number 3, leave the conversation right away and ask an adult for help if a stranger ever asks to meet up or come to your house. We hope this video has shown you just how easy it is to fake being a kid online, and that you've learned some tips for how to recognize when you may actually be talking to an adult. Stay safe out there. The internet's a big place. Know that no matter what, it's always okay to ask for help.
So as you can see just how easy it is to do that. I mean, and yeah, it does seem scary to children, but it's scarier to adults because we cannot micromanage everything that they see, everything that they come in contact with, who they come in contact with. So we have to do our due diligence and being informed. And so that's why you all are here tonight and streaming online, whether tonight or later, so that you are self-aware. Now, some of these COPA compliant websites, I wanted to provide a list for you parents out there who may be searching for sites to be more proactive. If you want to take a screenshot of this, you're welcome to do that or write them down. Achieve 3000, for example, Activity Learn, Adobe Creative Cloud Suite, Animoto, Blackboard, BrainPop, and BrainPop Junior, Canva, Career Cruising, and on and on and on. And so what does it mean that these websites are compliant? It simply means that they have to provide you notice and information that they are collecting personal information. And as a parent, if you have a child accessing these sites and they're under the age of 13, you can opt out. That's what that means, that they are following that federal law tooth and nail, and they are willing to be held accountable in the court of law. So to determine if a website is COPA compliant, now, of course, this is separate from the list we just reviewed, take these following steps. Review the privacy policy. Check the privacy policy on the website to see if it includes information about collecting or using or disclosing children's personal information. Check for age verification. Some compliant sites may use age gates or other mechanisms to ensure users are over 13. Contact the website. Reach out to the website's support or contact information to inquire about their COPA compliance status. Also, check for the COPA seal or certification. Some websites may display a COPA certification seal or badge on their pages, though it's not mandatory. Here's some more. Research the company. Look into the reputation and history of the company and its website. Well-established and reputable companies are more likely to prioritize compliance with privacy laws. Excuse me. Use online resources. Some organizations or watchdog groups may maintain lists or databases of COPA compliant websites. While these lists are not exhaustive, these resources can provide additional information. Lastly, use parental control tools. These tools and other software often include features that help parents manage their children's online activities and can provide insights into the websites their children are accessing. All right, so parents, caregivers, children, y'all remember, this federal act has significant implications for online businesses, okay? And it's vital for companies to be aware of these requirements. Failure to comply with COPA can result in significant financial penalties and harm a company or online service provider's reputation, and it can impair it severely. It's essential for companies and online services to prioritize the privacy and safety of children online. And I just want to circle back to what I said earlier at the beginning of this meeting. This federal act, excuse me, it is a privacy law, but it's only for children under the age of 13. That means from the age of 14 and up, our children are left without support from a federal law. Companies are not held accountable in what and how they collect personal information of our children. So, in my personal opinion, as I mentioned in the beginning of this meeting, as a security privacy practitioner in my career, I think this is a great start, but it's not enough. And as we get into the AI age, wherein we're seeing a technology called deep fake, excuse me, and for those of you who don't know what deep fake is, it is a technology that can mask a video headshot of someone talking, and the technology systems can place someone else's face seamlessly, and it appears someone else is talking. This has happened amongst celebrities. This has happened amongst politicians. There is so much dis and misinformation behind deep fake technology. So really, it's our responsibility to be in the know of this, parents, caregivers, right? For all of us to be vigilant and proactive in monitoring what our children are doing every single time they have a device in their hands. I'm going to veer off this slide for a second and speak from a personal perspective. Parents, caregivers, aunties, grandmas, sisters, whomever you are, don't feel like you're hounding your children when you want to know what they're doing. No, you have a right to know. But more importantly, you have a responsibility to sit your children down and explain why you appear to be violating their privacy and their personal space, and teach them that it's a safety measure, right? Rather than just being overbearing. We all are still learning. And now that you've sat through this conversation, my hopes is that you're more informed and you're more self-aware about how these websites operate, what data they're extracting unbeknownst to your child or yourself, and that there is a federal act for those of you who have children under the age of 13 that you now can leverage if there is an issue or you come across violation of your child's personal information. And for parents who have children ages 14 and up, we still have work to do in advocacy. So here are some of the sources to build our conversation tonight. ChatGPT, YouTube Video Bark, YouTube Video Money Moments, Quora.com, and I'm just not going to even attempt those last URLs, but again, you are welcome to take a screenshot of this slide and investigate for yourself and your children. I'll just wait a few more minutes. Okay. And now we're at the Q&A. So for our Zoom guests, if you have any questions or comments, did you learn something? If you did, please share. Or if you have any questions, you're welcome to use the chat or you're welcome to come off mute. For our streaming audience, the chat is open, so you're welcome to leave questions and comments there as well. And if I'll just come back and check the video, and if there's a question out here, I'll respond to it as soon as I see it. So feel free to use that chat as well. Are there any comments, questions, feedback, or concerns?
Yeah, I know I just recently got home the other day and come to find out some company called Endurance had sent my son a letter in the mail about his 2024 vehicle notification. He's 13. I don't know how they got our address or how they got his name, information, and all that. It was mailed directly to him. So I asked him about it, and he was like, "Well, I was like, what you been doing on the internet?" He's like, "No, I hadn't filled out anything, but somehow they did end up sending him mail about vehicle insurance." So,
Sometimes, and I'm sorry, but go ahead, continue.
I was just saying that I was gonna try to call back. There is no number on the letter, but I was gonna try to reach out to them and let them know that he on the 13. He don't got no vehicle.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely would do that. I'd also pull up COPA and also check out the resource section so that you can also use that as a resource. They should have an email address for inquiries, or a phone number where you can actually get that information. So you have a couple of avenues, right? But what I was going to say is, in some cases, and I've seen this when I was younger in my 20s, that a lot of these creditors, they do mapping, and mapping is through social security numbers, right? Our social security number, our personal data is being sold all the time. Our personal data is on the black web, like hands down. And it's just, I mean, and in data sets, in some cases, it's, maybe individual, but a lot of times it's a data set, which means there are, I mean, some 6 or more terabytes of data, where it's including all kinds of personal identifying information. And so a lot of times when these things are sold off, and information, they say, oh, the beauty industry, the hair industry is the most lucrative industry. No, no, no. Information is the ticket. People pay top dollar for information. And I say that to say that they map. And so when they're able to look at your credit file or your husband's credit file, and they're mapping and realizing that you're married, and there's kind of that joint thing that happens with social security numbers through marriage, and they start putting your children underneath like a tree, they will, and this happened again in my 20s. I was getting information about my parents, well, creditors, excuse me, my parents were in business with, they were sending information to me, or they were getting letters about, business I was doing as a young adult. So it is definitely concerning for sure. But because he's 13, you fall underneath this federal act. So I say research and get in touch with them. Also reach out or locate the COPA Act and find that resource section there, and make sure that you are using that as a resource and just letting them know. And they will maybe even ask you for that letter. I mean, they are willing because this is very serious, right? And you want to know what that's about. So I think it's a blessing, the timing of this conversation. And then that just happened. So I would definitely encourage that. Thank you for sharing. Is there another question or comment? I see something in the chat. Let's see. Thank you so much, Soror. I really appreciate it. You know, I again, this comes from not just, you know, having something to do, right? This is my job. And when I do this and I read these privacy laws, this is my passion for human trafficking. This is, I'm a parent, and you know, and like we all are caring for children. So I come from, you know, with so many layers about this, that I feel it's so important and necessary that this information goes forth, and that people will come and just peruse YouTube and one day come across, God willing, this video and learn that, okay, there is a federal law I didn't know existed that pertains to my child. You know, let me find out these websites they've been going to are COPA compliant, you know, and so forth. So really appreciate that feedback. Thank you so much. Is there anything else? Any questions, comments, concern? I think we're at the end. We're at the end. So thank you everyone for streaming. Thank you, Sorors, and guests for hopping on and having this conversation and joining in on your Saturday evening. Please follow us on the World Wide Web. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. God bless you all. Thank you for coming and have a wonderful night.
Good night.
Good night.
Right.
Good night.